I see our attendee list is quickly filling up, so we'll give everyone just another minute before we start. Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you might be. And welcome to Connected Places Catapult's third Thursday's event. We are live today recording, and if you have any trouble with the recording on Zoom, you can join our YouTube page where this is also being, our Catapult events page where this is also being streamed live. So if you have any trouble, you can pop over to that page and watch it live there as well. I am Amy Hohadl, and I'm the Director of Connected Places Catapult's global program. Today, we are having a global program event, Seizing Singapore's Opportunities. If you're not familiar with the Catapult global program, we're currently running projects live all around the world, from air quality test beds in Bangalore to mobility as a service in Malaysia, innovation and procurement in Brazil, and data sharing across African cities. But today, we're talking about the always exciting, always dynamic innovation market in Singapore with some really expert speakers, including Wei Chuen from the EDBCS, the Economic Development Board of Singapore. If you're not familiar with them, I would encourage you to listen closely to the first discussion, because whether you're in Singapore or London, the EDBS has a plethora of resources that you're going to want to know about. Most importantly, if you're an innovator or entrepreneur in London interested in the Singapore market, there is an office in London. So please listen closely to Wei Chuen's presentation. We also have a double act with Charlene Wong and Teng KHOO. Charlene is with the IMDA, the Development Authority in Singapore. They regulate the innovation environment, but they also run all of the challenges and the funding. So again, if you're looking for funding, you're going to want to listen to Charlene very carefully. Teng from Singapore Tech Engineering. It's important to understand who the large companies are in Singapore, because most likely, if you'd like to work there, you're going to need a partner. So you'll find ST Engineering presentation very interesting. And then we also have an example of someone who's navigated the environment in Singapore, Yeong Chien. He's the executive director of Privitar. And Privitar has recently gone through the accreditation process and worked with all of the organizations that you'll hear from today. And then finally, we'll hear from Elsie Yim, who is with the Department for International Trade based in Singapore, and has a kind of finger on the pulse of what's happening and what the opportunities are for UK businesses in Singapore. So what I'd like to let you know is that throughout the webinar, we will be taking questions. You'll want to use the Q&A button that is at the bottom of your screen. Please, not the chat function. We won't be monitoring that. So use the Q&A button, and we'll be going through those questions and looking for ones that are most similar, and trying to answer a few at the end, but we have very little time at the end. So if we can, we'll answer some of those offline as well. But to get us started, we have a bit of interaction. If anyone listening today has been to one of the Catapult's Third Thursday events in person, or you've been to a Catapult event in general, you know that our events are normally extremely interactive. And so for Zoom or for webinars, we're really missing our Post-it notes and our whiteboards. So we wanted to start with a little bit of engagement. We have some poll questions. That was the best we could do without our Post-it notes. So we have a couple, 3 poll questions just to get people engaged in the conversation. I'll tell you, the first one is quite easy. They do get, it's a test. They do get a little bit more difficult as they go on. But what we'd like to do is put up our first poll question just to get a feel for who's joining us today. So if you could put up the poll question, and then you should see that on your screen. You'll be able to vote for that question. We'll give it about 20 seconds. So scroll through there and think about what sector you're most likely representing. And if it's not there, feel free to click other. We'll give that another few seconds and hit submit, and then we'll get an idea of who's with us today. Go ahead. SME startups. Okay, very interesting. Well, of course, if you're looking for opportunities, this is the place to be. So I think you've found the right webinar. I think you're going to have a lot of questions for our panelists if you're an SME startup. So next question, slightly more difficult, but of course we need to start with the elephant in the room and the situation that we're currently in. So put up the question about COVID. Does COVID present an opportunity or a challenge to innovators and entrepreneurs in getting your solutions to market? And good question, since we have a lot of SMEs with us this morning. There's a lot of talk about the opportunity that innovations can present, but do you feel that getting those opportunities to the marketplace, is there an opportunity or a challenge in that? Give it, okay. We have okay, great. So I think if you feel that this is an opportunity, then the presenters that we have today will help you figure out the channels that you need to go through to bring those solutions to market. And now the last one, and just slightly more specific, still around COVID, but looking at some sectors now as we are challenged with COVID, do you think that COVID presents an opportunity to increase our commitment to low carbon living? And all over the world, people have been talking about the change in lifestyle, less driving, cleaner air, different way of living. Do you think we can sustain that? And do you think innovation can play a role in that? Okay, see how we're doing. Yes, I think I'll be curious. I think the interesting part of these polls are always the ones who say maybe, because I think there's a lot to unpack in there. And I think it's a very true statement. It might present an opportunity. I think if COVID has taught us something, it's that we really can't predict the future. Do you think people will just revert back to the old way of living or not? Do we have an opportunity here to sustain a more healthy lifestyle and increase healthy living in our cities? So we might touch on a bit of that today. So because we do have so many speakers, I'd like to get us right to it. So without further ado, on to our first speaker, Wei Chuen, who will be talking about the general landscape right now for Singapore, the tech landscape. Over to you, Wei Chuen.
Thank you, Amy, and the team at Connected Places Catapult, as well as DIT for inviting me to this webinar. And thank you all for spending time with us. I'll get right into it. My name is Wei Chuen. I'm responsible for EDB's European operations. And just an introduction on the EDB. We are a lead economic agency that plans and execute economic strategies for the country. And if I boil it down to what we do on a daily basis, we do two things. One is to develop industry verticals. So making sure that the sectors that we are keen in promoting, they are sustainable and they are competitive for companies. The second thing that which is closely tied to my role is we have offices around the world that's responsible for promoting Singapore as an investment destination. And so that's core to our role in attracting investments into Singapore and creating jobs and business opportunities in the country. Giving you a snapshot on the Singapore economy, because I think some of you will be quite keen to understand the opportunities in Singapore itself. We have a fairly diversified economy, and you would know Singapore as a hub, for logistics. That Singapore is one of the top financial hubs in Asia. But I would like to also point out that we are a key manufacturing hub, and over 20% of our GDP comes from manufacturing activities. So if you are a company that's supporting manufacturing sectors, I think this is a noteworthy point to take away from today's message. I think beyond that, the Singapore opportunities, which I'll get back at the end of my presentation, I think what's really exciting for us is that we are located in a part of in the world where opportunities are in abundance. And if you look at where Singapore is geographically located, we are right in the middle of the Asia Pacific region. And within a 3 to 4 hours flight time, you could get to most of Southeast Asia. And within a 5 to 6 hour flight, you could get to the rest of Asia Pacific and access to more than 4.2 billion people. So I think for us, the location of Singapore is something that we benefit from, and we are hoping to tap into that by offering us as a platform to companies who are looking to access Asia. But we all know maybe perhaps Asia very well. Some of you would have businesses in China or in Japan, the more developed economies in Asia. But I'd like to just spend a couple of minutes on Southeast Asia, because this is where I think the excitement lies in the coming years. Southeast Asia, a region of 11 countries and about 650 million people. The economy is $2.8 trillion, and it's expected to become the fourth largest economy by 2030. And that translates into about 5% annual growth for the region over the next decade. And that's on the back of the 5% growth per annum over the previous decade. And if you ask me why has that been such a strong growth from the region, I think one of the main reasons is because of the demographics that Southeast Asia currently enjoys. 70% of the population are under the age of 40. And at the same time, we are seeing the growth of the middle class, where 1/3 of the population will move. 1/3 of the population today are in the middle class, and that will go into 2/3 by 2030. So you would see rising affluence within the region. But sometimes people ask me, what does that really translate to? And so I usually point them to this chart that I've taken off Asia Partners report. If you look at Southeast Asia's current income levels, it is at about 4.6 thousand USD. And if we think about middle class, what does it mean is that if you just correlate it to where China was about 12 years ago or 13 years ago, that's around 2007. Southeast Asia is exactly at where China was 12 to 13 years ago. And if we see that same trajectory for the region, we would actually expect Southeast Asia to mirror the consumer and business spending that China has experienced over the past 12 years. And that's what is keeping us really excited about the opportunities in Southeast Asia. And for those who are playing in the technology space, I think you may or may not be familiar with the Southeast Asian tech landscape, but it's today fairly more or less defined by the internet economy. A lot of the companies playing in this space tend to be B2C. And you'll see the key sectors that have been receiving a lot of funding and seeing a lot of growth would be in the likes of sectors like e-commerce, online media, ride-hailing, and those particular sectors, I would say that they have grown quite a lot over the last 5 years. But looking ahead, the kind of the untapped parts of the technology sector or internet economy, I will very much focus on the B2B markets. And so in certain sectors like financial services, in healthcare, in education, we expect that smaller companies, startups will start to enter into these sectors enabled by technology. And I think this is where the next wave of growth in the technology sector in Southeast Asia will come from. But if you are really keen to learn more about that, I think there are a number of reports that would articulate the opportunities a lot better than I do. So do feel free to look at these resources online. They're all available. And I'll switch my attention back to Singapore. Okay. While Singapore is a small country, you saw that our GDP was somewhere around 360 billion pounds. We think that Singapore can be a decent marketplace for companies who are looking to deploy innovative solutions. One of the reasons is because Singapore has launched what we call the Smart Nation Initiative. Our Prime Minister launched it in 2014. And basically, it is an initiative to drive adoption of technologies in Singapore, be it in government, in business, or in day-to-day citizen lives. So the main objective of this initiative is to increase productivity of our businesses and to enhance the welfare of our citizens. And as a result of that, it means that the government is having to spend more money on technology. And just I would say about 10 days ago, this news headline came about. We are going to spend about $3.5 billion Sing dollars to support businesses in technology adoption and technology solutions. So that could be to do with digital services for businesses or citizens, modernization of government ICT infrastructure. So to give you a sense, it is 30% more than the last financial year of spending that we had. And we expect that SMEs would then participate in about 80% of such opportunities, up from 70% last year. So one potential pathway for some companies who will eventually set up in Singapore is that you can go through IMDA's accreditation process. In nutshell, you, as a small, medium enterprise or startup, you might not be known to a lot of the government agencies or businesses in Singapore. So this particular process helps you to get assessed by IMDA, and you get kind of an endorsement from IMDA. And so when you're bidding for contracts, it makes it a lot easier to get notice in spite of not having a previous track record in Singapore. But aside from that, I think we wanted to share a few other agencies that are trying to drive adoption of solutions, be it the Monetary Authority of Singapore, where they are inviting fintechs to provide innovative solutions to the financial institutions we have in Singapore. So they have a challenge that they've put up there. LTA, the Land Transport Authority, has a Singapore Mobility Challenge. So go and Google all these challenges, and you'll find that there are many opportunities for you to get plugged into the ecosystem. But aside from government agencies interacting with startups, I think I wanted to point out that corporates in Singapore are also interested in that. And just 2 months ago, my team and I organized what we call a UK Singapore Innovation Matching Day. We invited UK startups and also European startups to then pitch to 5-6 Singapore corporates to share with them their solutions and to matchmake them to see how they could work together or be invested in by the Singapore corporates. And you'll see other corporates in Singapore, such as Singapore Airlines and ST Engineering, who's speaking later, that they are also putting themselves out there to working with startups from around the world. A last point here is that I've mentioned a lot of Singapore corporates, Singapore government agencies who are interested in working with companies from all over the world. But do know that as a hub, we are home to many multinationals. And a lot of these multinationals do have their innovation arms or their sizable HQs in Singapore, who are also looking to explore how they could tap on the innovation and capabilities of startups in Singapore. So I think the opportunities in Singapore itself, even though we are a small economy, are fairly diverse. And if you spend some time exploring the landscape, you'll be able to find something that's relevant to your business. Okay, so next steps. I think talk to us, get connected with us. We have some digital resources online that you can tap on to find out how to hire in Singapore, how to innovate in Asia. So that's one way to keep in touch with us. But certainly, if you are also open to receiving some of the newsletters that we have, do sign up. And we will also be informing some of our subscribers on the opportunities for the next innovation matching session that we are organizing for European startups in about 2 to 3 months' time. And if anything else, feel free to reach out to myself on LinkedIn, or you have the folks from DIT, Elsie, and I think April. They are really plugged into the ecosystem, so feel free to reach out to them if you have any other questions about the opportunities in Singapore. Thank you, and I look forward to receiving your questions as we go into Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wei Chuen. That was incredibly informative, and I think for those that are looking at the Singapore landscape for the first time, that presents a really good overview. And I noticed you said that 20% of the market is manufacturing sector, but to me, the other 80% is quite interesting, which is a diversified market, because there's more and more evidence that says the successful economies, especially in a post-COVID environment, are those that have already successfully diversified. And Singapore has a very diversified economy, which makes it very interesting to new businesses. And I'm sure that a lot of ears perked up when you mentioned the 3.5 billion fund, the 70% increase in funding. And I'm sure that we will see many questions pop up in the Q&A around accessing that type of funding. So we shall see. But let's get on to our next two speakers. We have a bit of a double act here. So we have Charlene from IMDA to talk a bit more about, I think, Wei Chuen mentioned a couple things like the accreditation program. And these are activities that IMDA runs, but she has that and more to talk about in her presentation. And that will be followed right up by Teng Lip. So we'll take those two speakers together. So Charlene, when you're done, we'll move right on to Teng Lip. Over to you, Charlene.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everyone. Hi, good morning and good evening to folks from Singapore. I've seen a few familiar faces, a few familiar names. So thank you very much for joining all the way from UK and from Singapore side. I'm from the IMDA Infocom Media. Just to give a background of IMDA, we are formed in 2016, where we brought together Infocom Development Authority as well as a Media Development Authority. In fact, we were one of the last batch of government agencies from worldwide to combine these two efforts together, the Infocom and the media. But once we're done, our mission is to then to drive the Singapore transformation in this digital economy. So today I'll share with you on our program. One of the programs that we have within our digital innovation will be an open innovation platform. So are you open for innovation? I see many startups around, half of the audience are from the startups. So I'm sure you are embracing innovation. So what do we do as an agency to help you guys to bridge this gap? The next slide. For this IMDA's Open Innovation Platform, we launched it in 2018, and it has been a 2 years very fast-paced and interesting journey for me personally. IMDA, when we started this off, it was very much with the intent of the problem solvers that are going to participate in this platform. For IMDA, when we reach out to the problem owners, they can be enterprises, SME, or even government agencies from Singapore putting up the challenges in public domain, and where we invite global solvers to join in. So startups, the 50% startups over here, please go to this website. Our next call for innovation is in July. So to add on with Wei Chuen's earlier challenges, I think you do have a good few repertoire of challenges for you to apply, and hopefully you end up some challenges in Singapore. Problem solvers, right now we have about more than 8,000 solvers concentrated a lot much in our region. And happy for me to give a reason for myself to go to UK to meet up with all of you. We run 129 challenges already so far, and we received about 3.7 million prize money from the problem owners. So for problem owners, for them to launch a challenge with us, they would have to pledge a prize money, which will eventually goes to you when you get awarded. Currently, we are running about 31 prototypes developing or developed, and some of them has gone into commercialization. The next slide I will show you will be how OIP, we actually provide a very structured process, both a POC and a prototype for the solvers, as well as some of the perks for the problem owners, as well as the problem solvers to attend. So for open innovation challenges, there are always a question of what are you requesting for from the organization side. Typically, they will want to have things as quick, fast, and cheap. But usually, we know this 2-3 combination doesn't come together. So we put it very structuredly. We ask the problem owners, what do you want at the end outcome? And we put up in proper category, whether it's POC or prototype, so the solvers also are able to calibrate what kind of proposal, how far can you do within this short amount of spend time. As a problem owner, not many in this session, but I should address to you as well if there's any one of you here. I'd like to get you to join into our platform, where immediately we expose you to access of the whole 8,000 expertise and growing. and that it will be a structured innovation process. You can't expect less from government agency, especially from Singapore, to move away from structure. So a very structured process that we put you through, I'll share with you later on. And when we put you on board into the OIP is to reduce the cost and the innovation risk that you take while going through this innovation. Problem solvers wise, you get access to real business opportunities, not ideas or not wish lists, but real opportunities that they are looking for. You also get a chance to win the prize money together and commercialize with our problem owner. With that, we also hope that you can then, through this process, get a co-creation and go to market with our problem owner. For the next slide, we will show you some of the challenges that were hosted, and you can also see the varied sectors that we look into. Wei Chuen touched on the smart nation that we're looking at. A smart nation doesn't only apply within a sector. So this actually gives a good overview of what kind of sectors has been very active with us and what are the areas or pain points that they are looking at. For example, Singapore Airlines, well, where Wei Chuen also mentioned earlier. So Singapore Airlines have their own app challenge, and they also look into enterprise level of challenges and launch a few with us. From the very engineering aspect, doing location tracking and management of container assets, ULD loading, if I may call it, the big boxes that where our luggage goes through, seems like a lifetime ago, as well as some of the food sustainability. Earlier on the poll about how we can also ensure the sustainability, a greener world, food rescue. So for challenges, it actually cuts across the different domain of technology, from digital experiences to AI to IoT solutions. The next slides will show you what do you get as a problem owner when you join us with our OIP. For Open Innovation Platform, the only cost required for problem owner is the prize money they're going to pay to our problem solvers. So there is no listing fee, no agent fee, no other fees involved. So just the prize money, and 100% of them goes to the solvers that you select. When you are a problem owner and you join on to our OIP platform, we actually also provide you other incentives for you. So the first thing, we conduct a problem refinement workshop. Many times enterprises will think, this is my challenges, this is what I have problems with. After the 2 to 3 hours refinement workshop, you walk out of the places and realize that, well, actually what I've been trying to solve was actually not the true north of the problem. So we go through a methodology of sifting all the underlying questions that you have not been asking so much because of your domain expertise you are at. So for us, we're coming from different lens of angle and helping you to craft a document called a challenge brief and to put it online. We are part of Infocom media development. So the end part, the media part, allow us to play around with some of the media production. All the problem owners will be able to do a challenge video, 2 to 3 minutes video production, where we work with you and our production crew to produce a challenge video. Challenge brief and challenge video, we will use it and to reach out for different solvers worldwide. Innovation Thursdays, in addition to the third Thursdays for Catapult, Innovation Thursdays, we work on the meet and greet session for our problem solvers. Every Thursdays during an open call, solvers are invited to join us to hear from the problem owners what do they like to share and address some of the Q&A session, some sort like a reverse pitching that startups are also familiar in. Finally, we also do a very customized scouting and curation, largely from the pool of accreditation company, as well as some of the solvers that we have in the industry to put together a comprehensive proposals to the problem owners in this challenge. The next slide, I will not drill down more on it. I'll share the slides around after this session, but this gives you a very detailed view on the process that we do within our OIP, from the preparation phase to the application phase. For the startups, for the problem solvers, you would probably want to take a look at the evaluation phase, because that is when the owners will then be evaluating your progress, as well as sending you emails and clarification on your proposals. At the finalist stage, the second row, left tile, this is where problem owners will release the 30% of the prize money to each of the finalists. So there's no sharing of bucket of money. And once they select you, you'll start your 3 to 6 month development work. And then after that, you'll be awarded with the winning prize of the remaining 70% before going to the product refinement and commercialization. I've shared a lot on the problem owner angle. Let me address to half of the team over here, which is a problem solvers on the next slide. This is one of my last slide already. And for this solver support during and after the POC prototype was also to enhance the capacity of our solvers technology skill, as well as to ensure that we've got a more robust prototype developed to make sure that the commercialization is smoother and actually condense speed and accelerate into the market. Solvers receive largely 4 pillars of support from IMDA. Infrastructure-wise, this maybe gives you a reason from the non-Singaporean companies to head to Singapore. We have a prototyping lab facilities. We also provide free access to a usability testing lab, doing a UI UX testing, eyeball gazing tracking. We also have an immersive experiences lab for challenges that require AR, VR. For companies that are coming to Singapore for a short period of time, and you need us to bridge a gap of a hot desking space, co-working space, for a company, we will be able to support on that too. Development on the digital customer centricity capabilities will also be provided from IMDA for up to 10 man days. The other 2 supports will be very much on market access as well as accreditation for IMDA side. Later, you'll hear from one of our panelists as well to share on his accreditation process with IMDA side. So I think for this, let me end off the presentation, and we'll address more queries in the Q&A. Thank you, and my next guy in, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlene. All right, Teng Lip, we'll hand it right over to you to continue opportunities in Singapore. And Teng Lip, don't forget to unmute there you go. If anybody's playing Zoom bingo, you're on one of the choices.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Thanks the Connected Catapult team as well as DIT for having us on this webinar. I'm Teng Lip, and I head up the Corporate Venture Capital team for ST Engineering. I'll dive into what ST Engineering does and how we can potentially explore collaboration opportunities in Singapore as well as globally. So ST Engineering is a global technology defense and engineering group. We started in 1967 as a defense contractor in 1967. That's more than 50 years ago. But over time, we also went into commercial products. So today, actually, commercial revenues is actually 2/3 of the group's revenue. And defense, whilst important, is only 1/3. So globally, we have 23,000 employees, of which 16,000 are engineers. And we focus on, other than military, also commercial use technology. We are listed on the Singapore Stock Exchange, currently about $10 billion in terms of 10 billion US dollars. We have revenues about 6 billion and EBITDA 10% of that. So we have, while our key strength is in the region, but we have defense, government, and enterprise customers in more than 100 countries. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we are in 20 countries, 40 cities worldwide, and we have a very active office in London as well. Next. So what do? So we have 4 core businesses. We have 4 divisions: aerospace, electronics, land systems, and marine. So for aerospace, we are actually the largest independent MRO globally. MRO stands for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. We also do a lot of passenger to freighter conversion. So when passenger aircraft becomes old, they need to be converted to transport aircraft. We do quite a lot of that, both with Airbus and Boeing. We also, other than services, we recently have gone into the products business as well. So we actually have a JV with Airbus in Dresden. So to manufacture floorboards on Airbuses. So basically, 55% of all the floorboards you step on in an Airbus plane is actually manufactured by us. We also made an acquisition of of a company called MRAS in the US, which makes nacelles. So basically, they make aircraft engine covers. So that is something that we have gone into recently as well. Electronics is our second largest sector. So for electronics, we have a few main businesses. One is that we do a lot of railway electronics. So other than railway electronics means electronics for like the underground and trains. So basically, other than signaling, which we don't do, we do pretty much everything else. So we do passenger information systems, automated fare collection systems. We're about 5 or 6 in those areas. For electronics, we are quite big into satellite communications. So we have a subsidiary in the US called iDirect that we manufacture satellite communication equipment. Yeah, and for electronics, we're also into OT, cybersecurity, operational technology. So we cyber protect critical infrastructure as well as things like waterworks, power plants, and all that. Land systems traditionally we do more military equipment, but recently we have gone into the commercial space as well. So we actually run autonomous bus program in Singapore. We have three POCs that are ongoing. So we are working very closely with the Land Transport Authority in Singapore to resolve the traffic congestion issue. Autonomous buses for public transport. That's what we do. Marine is a more traditional business. So we have 2 yards in Singapore as well as 2 yards in the US. What's interesting is that for the yards in the US, we actually manufacture icebreakers for the US Coast Guard. Yeah, so it's quite ironic, right? A Singapore company based in on the equator manufacturing icebreakers for the US Coast Guard. Yeah. Next. So, like I said earlier, so today we have about 8 billion in terms of our revenues. 2/3 is commercial, 1/3 is from defense. In terms of customers, our key strength is still in Asia, but we have sizable revenues coming in from the US, from Europe. In terms of our sector, aerospace is the largest, 44%, followed by electronics, land systems, and marine. Next, please. So these are our traditional sectors: aerospace, electronics, land systems, and marine. Going forward, some of the growth drivers for us will be in the area of smart city, as well as in the international defense business. So what is key for the group is that we always believe in technology. 2/3 of the workforce are engineering talents. We have several strong R&D initiatives, which I'll touch on later. We have set up strategic technology centers, and of course, we also have a CBC as well. Next, please. So for ST Engineering, technology and innovation is our DNA. We are constantly reinventing and innovating solutions to solve real-world problems. So, like I mentioned, we have set up strategic technology centers in the area of cybersecurity as well as data analytics. We have a digital office that is trying to, especially under the COVID-19 period, to both digitalize internally as well as doing digitalization as a business. So in terms of the innovation tools the group has, we have corporate labs that we work with some of the local universities. We have a corporate venture arm. We have an incubator, what we call an open innovation lab. We also do quite a number of industry as well as partnership and collaborations with some of the industry players. Next. So we are a firm believer in that no one party can go it alone. So we always believe in forming strategic partnerships for global growth across all classes of partners. So we work very closely with government agencies to generate lead demand in Singapore. So we work with the Ministry of Home Affairs, JTC, which is a significant industrial landowner in Singapore, Jurong Port, Land Transport Authority, Sentosa, Ministry of Transport, and of course EDB as well. Then we also work with some of the industry partners so they can go to market as a pack. So the logos featured here are all some of the what we call the large local enterprises in Singapore. So like Savannah Jurong, Chinese, Siemens, as well as some of the foreign players like Hikvision, Motorola, Cisco, Keppel Corporation. Not forget, we also work with SMEs as well as startups, as well as IHLs, which is the Institute of Higher Learnings, as well as research institutes to co-develop technology and IP. So NUS, so we work with all the major universities in Singapore like NUS, SUTD, and NTU. These are the top these top 3 universities in Singapore. We also work with A-STAR, which is the Agency for Science and Technology and Research in Singapore. And what you'll see is that there are also startups here. The bottom right 6 logos are all startups that we have actually invested in and work very closely with. Next. So going back into one of our growth drivers, which is smart city. So smart city means different things to different people. But what we envisage as smart city is that we look at it in terms of 3 verticals: smart security, smart environment, and smart mobility. For smart security, we look at public security as well as cyber security. Smart environment, it will be in terms of energy management, waste and water treatment. Smart mobility is rail, which is based on our strength in rail electronics, as well as road. What we mean by road is that, in terms of fleet management systems for some of the cars, as well as our autonomous bus systems. And we believe that there are certain horizontal that is very important, things like data analytics, digital connectivity, and robotics, which applies across all these verticals. Next. So this is our solution for smart city, which we call CitySense. So you can see the one I touched earlier on smart security. So under smart security is cybersecurity, again, physical security solutions, drone networks. So we have under drone networks, we are like drone in a box that is used for public security and safety. Physical solutions, we have things like perimeter defense, which we use to protect important installations. Cybersecurity, again, focusing, we build SOCs, which are security ops centers. We also provide MSSP solutions. Under smart mobility, again, there's a rail electronics, which we have traditionally been very strong in, and it's not just a Singapore business. We actually we have quite a lot of. This is more of a regional business, so we're actually in many cities in China. We are in Taiwan and even in Thailand. So, for example, in Bangkok, Thailand, half the BTS lines actually uses our solution, and actually even in, let's say, in California, the BART, the Bay Area Transit, Railway Transit, they actually uses our passenger information system as well. So we also do traffic management systems for, let's say, managing fleets of buses, fleets of taxis. And under autonomous solutions, we have our autonomous bus. We also have AMR, automated mobile robot, that does material handling. Smart environment, we are into IoT solutions for municipal services. So we have a very strong competitive smart street light solutions. We believe that the doorway to any smart city project is via a street light. So and we have been doing that quite a bit. We also do smart water and waste management, starting from Singapore. So in Singapore, we have desalination plants, we have wastewater treatment and water treatment as well. Next. So this is just to get a sense of our smart city projects. So we have quite a number across the world. Next. So even for COVID-19, we thought, to answer to Amy's earlier question, it's an opportunity for us. So we took advantage of the COVID-19 situation to roll out quite a lot of technological solutions. So we deployed our security robot. We actually came up with the infra fever screening systems. We also, did the integrated surveillance systems within some of our hospitals as well as sites which house some of the COVID patients. We also helped some of the local hospitals, like Tan Tock Seng and all that, to set up their C3 systems, so as to improve their efficiency during this period. In terms of public safety and health, we were very quickly mobilized to produce N95 and surgical mask production, something that, we have traditionally done N95 but not surgical masks, but because of the global shortage at the time, 2 months ago, we quickly put together a team to produce surgical masks in Singapore. So this is the autonomous robot that we talk about. It's actually an acquisition we made about 3 years back from a US company. So they started off doing material handling in hotels, but after acquiring the company, we actually expanded the use of it from other than hotels to go into hospital. It was started as doing material handling in hospitals. Then we actually moved into hotels and now even being deployed for COVID-19. And some of the contact tracing solutions for Singapore. So in terms of the stay-home notice tagging, we also developed this thing called AgiTrace, which is actually contact tracing software embedded with data analytics. Next. So going to the corporate venture team, so we are called STEV. So we are relatively new, established 3 years ago in 2017. We have 150 million US fund size. For deals we can lead or we can syndicate. Typically we invest up to 10 million over seed to Series B, but so far our sweet spot is more Series A and B. And we do not invest for purely financial returns. We are strategic investors. So for any investments we make sure that one of our business unit or our sector will come in and ensure that it's a win-win situation with the startup. So in terms of our sector focus, it's like robotics, cybersecurity, autonomous technologies, and data analytics. And actually all these are enabling technologies for our smart city drive. So we do new and follow-on rounds. We're active board participant. We actually do take out our board seats and we lead and syndicate deals. Next. So these are some of the startups that we invested in. So we have invested in, so under our portfolio, we have 6 startups, of which we actually led 4 of them. Out of these 6 startups, 3 are from Israel, 2 in the US, and 1 in Singapore. We're also actively looking out in Europe, of course. And we have been collaborating with a couple, but have not made any investment yet. Like I said previously, we have a very active London office that help us to do technology scouting in this part of the world. Next. So this is some of our key strengths. So like I say, we believe that we have some very strong core capabilities, but there are gaps. And we think that working with startups, SMEs is the fastest way to close some of these gaps. So when we work with STEV, it's always a collaboration first. Then we try to have from point to a complete solution. Startups can also leverage off our domain knowledge, our engineering support, given that we have 16,000 engineers on the ground. We have good relations with government and enterprise that does lead demand. And using our distribution network, we can actually access to a global market. Next. Yeah. So thank you very much. That's my email. Please feel free to contact me. We have a very active group office in London. I'll be given the travel restrictions. In the meantime, I'll be happy to point you to my London-based colleagues. Thank you.
Teng Lip, thank you very much. Incredibly interesting, to Charlene as well. I have to say that I have stepped on board the autonomous buses in Singapore, and they are incredibly impressive. That was back when we used to be able to travel. But you can see those live demonstrations. So I think the work that ST Engineering is doing, and for those SMEs watching, I think that regardless of what sector you're working in, you'll see that there's such a diversified portfolio for ST. It really highlights the need that you have to have a local partner in Singapore if you're interested in working there, but that also the companies and the government of Singapore are really open to being partners with you. So I would encourage you to make contact with our panelists. And our next panelist, we're going to have Yeong Chien next. He's the Executive Director of Privitar. And I think for many of the SMEs out there, you might be thinking, okay, we've heard from EDB and some of the resources that we've had. We've heard from IMDA and how this works. And we've heard from a large business that obviously has a lot of success in the marketplace. But, is being part of these funds and challenges, does it really pay off? Does it work? Is it worth me going through the accreditation? And so I think what we'll hear from now is someone who has been through it and can tell you exactly what it's like and how successful it's been for him. Over to you, Yeong Chien.
Thanks, Amy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Right. So I'm having trouble sharing at the moment, so I'm not sure it's on my side here. Okay. Perhaps, Amy, you could just advance the slides. Oh, hang on.
Yep.
Okay. I can share now. Hang on. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, thanks again, Catapult and DIT and EDB for inviting me for this, sharing session. So, as Amy introduced, my name is Mr Yeong Chien. I'm the Executive Director for Privitar. So, if Privitar is actually a UK-based startup, we have, just started our operation in Singapore just under 2 years in Singapore. And so a bit of history of Privitar. Is a 6-year-old company, UK London-based, and very focused around the data privacy area. So one of the reasons why Privita have selected Singapore as the hub for Asia Pac is mainly because of the progressive innovation that the Singapore government vision is, and also there's a lot of investment around the digital economy across the Asia and Singapore landscape. And over the last few years, Privita has also been quite fortunate, been able to attract some investors. And most recently, we have just completed our Series C round, which was probably a couple of months ago, and now brought the total funding to Privita to about 144 million US dollars. And so the company is still rapidly growing. We are now approaching 200 people in the company, and serve many of the key industries in the financial services and healthcare, government agencies, life sciences, and telcos and so forth. And many of those companies are very much data-driven organization, where they see privacy as a key concern. So Privita being a software company, we've been quite fortunate being able to work with many of these large organizations across the world and also in Singapore. So a bit about Singapore and my experience. Obviously, Singapore being a hub in this region has always been very focused around the digital economy, and the government plays a very important part in terms of setting out the vision for the country and the entire industry. And so, obviously the Singapore government also take a very proactive, approach in terms of making sure the economy is thriving, as well as take, data privacy seriously. So in a recent report that was commissioned by the Prime Minister himself, there was a public sector data security review that was commissioned by him, and he places data security and data privacy as the top most important part of his digital economy agenda. So in doing that, he kind of spurred a lot of startups just like Privita to be able to serve the government agencies and the wider commercial industries across Singapore and in the region, where data-driven type of initiative are becoming more and more important for many of these organizations. But obviously, with many such data available in the market today, there are still concerns about privacy risks. And maybe I just want to take this opportunity to share what we mean by privacy risk and why Privita has a point of view around this. So as we all, sitting from mostly working from home today, experiencing this webinar set up by Catapult, is because of the situation that the global, citizens are facing with the COVID-19 situation. Likewise, in Singapore, it's a very similar situation that the Singapore government is facing, and they are doing such a good job in terms of tracking all the positive cases and treating the patients appropriately as well. But in doing so, the Singapore government also believes in transparency and sharing the information to the general public for public health safety and so forth. But just to also highlight some of the areas where we feel there's a need for technologies such as Privita, is the Singapore Ministry of Health regularly share updates of all the positive cases that has been found or confirmed in Singapore. So here's an example of information that is available publicly, and it demonstrates the information that is being shared to policymakers and healthcare workers to understand the seriousness of the COVID-19 situation. But of course, a lot of times patient records are highly sensitive, and you need to have due care to protect the data set itself. So but just by sharing such information like the age and the gender information about the individual, you may not seem to be directly identifying an individual or looks pretty harmless on its own, right? But as we know, that data is available quite rapidly and also across multiple sources right now. What we have found as Privita is there's still a lot of privacy risk, and that's where we have been working closely with the Singapore government and large organizations who take this very seriously. So if I just go to LinkedIn and do a quick search of a person who, potentially working at this first page Digital Singapore, and look into the details of this individual, there's a very high probability that I'm able to re-identify this person. So this is effectively a privacy risk that the industry and largely the governments are facing today with contact tracing that's ongoing everywhere. And so it's mindful that the government needs to take proactive action to ensure that the citizen data, whilst being used for public health care, public safety, it needs to be also bearing in mind the privacy risks that inherently brings. This is where Privita brings to the table by talking to many of the government agencies to explain that there's a need to ensure a proper ethical care or use of data when they are working with any data-driven type initiative. And so this is just some examples of how Privita is able to lay out some of the solution or capability to address many of these potential privacy attacks. Again, I'm just sharing what we do as Privita. It's not to to give you a lot of details about the company. Of course, if you would like to learn more, happy for you to reach out, and I'm sure these slides will be shared across to everybody as well. So given that the technology that Privita offers are pretty nascent in nature and solve real life problems that has not been seen in the past, what we have been able to do is working with IMDA, and then Charlene mentioned earlier that we have gone through accreditation process with the IMDA organization. And so that helps us to basically allow us to have access to many of the government agencies. And this is pretty much a rigorous process that IMDA runs. It goes through multiple evaluation from a technical solution perspective to financial to the company as well, and customer use cases and so forth. So it's a pretty elaborate and also detailed review done by IMDA. But the positive side of this is once this is accredited and is available and active for the first 18 months, subject for a renewal. And what this allows us to do as Privita is we are able to present our solution to all the government agencies. And having this accreditation also helps us to be considered first, as one of the technology vendor that's solving such challenges, right? And it allows us to have what we call, and what the IMDA calls, a green lane, direct access to procurement path with the Singapore government agencies. So like what Wei Chuen mentioned earlier, many of the larger organizations that is out there, the likes of IBM or Oracle, will typically is known to the market. For companies like Privita, which is unknown, a startup, this is a very good platform for us to create the awareness. And in fact, IMDA helps us quite a bit in bridging the communication, connecting us with the right audience, and helping us to make the introduction that we need, not just in Singapore government, but to also large enterprises in Singapore, like STE, NCS, and many more as well. And with the connection with other government agencies in the region, we are able to also tap their resources to help us to gain access to other adjacent markets like Malaysia, in Thailand, Philippines, Hong Kong, and so forth. So I would encourage many of the startups who's listening today to seriously consider this. It is a rigorous process, but it's a well worth to investigate, and it will help you to launch your startup in Singapore. And of course, it requires you to be in Singapore to achieve this as well. So I just wanted to end with one last slide to say thank you for the opportunity to share this, and I'll hand it over back to Amy.
Very good. Thank you, Yeong Chien. And I think that if anyone out there was wondering whether the resources from
Amy, I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me all right now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So just to say thank you, Yeong Chien. I think that if anyone was wondering about whether it's worth putting in the investment with accreditation and the other resources, it sounds like it is absolutely worth it. to become accredited. And it certainly means an investment in Singapore. So if you want to work in Singapore, you need to make the investment to do so. In the essence of time, we need to move on quickly to my good friend and colleague, Elsie Yim from DIT in Singapore. Thank you, Elsie. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Amy, and thank you, Connected Places Catapult, for organizing this Singapore Day webinar. And thank you to all our speakers. Today, I would run through 3 areas. I'll talk about how DIT could support UK companies coming to Singapore. I'll also mention about some of the existing opportunities that you could participate in. And last but not least, some of the upcoming events that you could be participating in. So DIT, I call myself a professional matchmaker. Essentially, my role is to assist UK technology companies to come to Singapore, and we try to matchmake opportunities as well as expertise from UK. And we also organize webinars like this to inform potential UK companies seeking to export to Singapore. And in addition to working with new UK companies coming to Singapore, we also work with existing companies that are already in Singapore, which includes Privator, the BTs, the Micro Focus. So essentially, look towards us as your matchmaking partner, as well as your extended eyes and ears in the Singapore market. Next slide, please. So what are some of the current challenges? So Wei Chuen has also mentioned about the Singapore Airlines App Challenge. So if you're looking at pitching to Singapore Airlines, this is an opportunity for you. There's also the Smart Ports Challenge that's organized by the Maritime Port Authority of Singapore together with the National University Enterprise Arm. So if you are in the ports industry, this is a challenge for you. And then Wei Chuen also mentioned about this Singapore Mobility Challenge. This is organized by the Land Transport Authority. And you would have an opportunity to pitch to the SMRT as well as the Singapore Bus Services organization in Singapore as part of this mobility challenge. Last but not least, you may have also seen the recent call for Eureka Global Stars. So this is in the 2nd year, and Singapore has partnered 14 different countries, which includes UK, Poland, South Korea. So this is an opportunity, especially if you are in the R&D space, to partner a Singaporean R&D partner or an organization. So it could be between academics and industry partners. And on the 25th of June, there's a webinar. So if you're interested in this opportunity, please sign up for the webinar. Okay, next please. In addition to some of the current challenges, do have a look at a couple of these websites as well. So Exporting is Great is the DIT's website where officers like myself, we seek out opportunities, be it from government tenders, private sector opportunities, and we put this on this website. And if you're registered and you've selected the sectors that you're interested in, the countries you're interested in, as and when if there's such an opportunity, you would get an alert. You may also wish to look at the intellectual property intermediary. So IPI is the Enterprise Europe Network partner in Singapore. Every week they have a newsletter where they put out tech offers and tech needs. And there's a technology marketplace. If you have a technology that you're looking for a partner, do have a look at that website because you can publish your technology to seek a partner. IoT Tribe is a UK accelerator. And they partnered Enterprise Singapore as part of the Global Innovation Alliance program. They are running a couple of cohorts. Essentially, it's an opportunity for UK European companies to come to Singapore to go through a program, as well as for Singaporean companies to go into UK. In fact, there's this current cohort called London Calling. So for Singaporean companies on the call, have a look at that opportunity if you're seeking to invest into UK. And if you're a cybersecurity company, have a look at ICE 71. Essentially, is Innovation Cybersecurity Ecosystem 71. It's a partnership between Singtel Innov8, the Singtel VC arm, as well as NUS Enterprise. And one of the partners running the program is Cylon, which is a UK cybersecurity accelerator. So have a look at that as well. Next, please. And finally, I'd like to share on some of the upcoming events in Singapore, which you could consider participating in. So AI Botics, it was meant to be a physical event, but now it's going virtual. It's over a period of 4 months. And there are 8 different themes, which includes human-machine collaboration, AI, and robotics. We are talking to a couple of UK universities who could be participating in it. So if you're interested, if you're in the robotics sector, do have a look at this event. Connect Tech Asia, it's the largest tech event in ASEAN. It's a DIT supported event, and in previous years we get between 50 to 70 UK companies exhibiting, but of course this year it's going to be a virtual event, but DIT is still supporting it. There would be a virtual exhibition, so if you're eligible UK company, you could get some grant from DIT. And if you're a cybersecurity company, do consider GovWare. That's the Singapore International Cybersecurity Week. In previous years, we have brought over 6 to 8 cybersecurity companies, and we work with the Defense Security Organization to put out a trade mission. It's still going ahead, but it could be potentially a virtual event. And last but not least, for this calendar year, it's the Singapore Week of Innovation and Technology Switch and Singapore FinTech Festival. Last year, they attracted between 50 to 60,000 delegates. And this year, it's going virtual. And last year for us, we organized 2 seminars, one on AI and one on 5G. And this year, we're still going to continue with the AI 5G theme, and we'll be likely looking to recruit companies for the virtual exhibition as well as virtual pitching event. And if you're in smart cities like CPC as well as ST Engineering, you could consider World City Summit. I mean, it's more than a year ahead, but World City Summit is one of the largest smart cities activity, and we as DIT would be planning to participate in that event. Next, please. So I've covered briefly what we could help you with, what are some of the opportunities and some of the events that you could participate in. So these are my contact details as well as April's details. So if you're looking at Singapore, even as a new company, new to market company, or an existing UK company looking to expand your business in Singapore or even in the region, please feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you. Next.
Great, Elsie. Thank you very much. And can I just say that if you are a UK company and you are interested in working in Singapore, you must get in contact with Elsie and with DIT. That is the most direct route to all the resources you need to work in Singapore. And also, I would highly recommend the World City Summit. It was disappointing. It was delayed this year due to COVID, but it is one of the best smart city conferences in the world. And I would highly recommend trying to attend that if you can. Now, we are at the point of Q&A, and I am so impressed with our panelists who have been diligently answering all of the questions live. So we're going to have, I'm going to pose one question to the panel that seems to have come up quite a bit. So if our panelists would like to turn their videos back on, and the question that I have tried to put together across several different questions that people have posed is, do you feel that given COVID, you will see a shift in some of the diversification of the economy in Singapore? For example, will COVID create a shifting pattern in mobility, perhaps from private transport to an increase in public? Will we see a shift for new solutions needed across the digital domain? And I could pose this first to Teng Lip and Wei Chuen, if you'd like to, or if anyone else would like to chip in, feel free. And don't forget to take yourself off mute if you'd like to answer the question.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I look kind of distracted because my son is trying to join the panel.
Oh, that's fine.
But
that's real life. And if he has that information on a diversified portfolio, we're
no,
happy.
but I think the question is a really good one, and I think in Singapore we've particularly seen acceleration of some of the trends that have already been taking place before COVID. So I think the digitalization of businesses will just accelerate because of what COVID has created in terms of, today we are all using Zoom. Businesses in Singapore that couldn't operate or open for dining, they had to be on board on food delivery services. Increased use of digital payments because there was also some concerns about paying using physical cash. So I think COVID has accelerated some of these trends, and we will see that businesses will be a lot more open to adopting digital solutions. And that's why, in some ways, the IMDA, GovTech, in Singapore, they have started to put in some funding and money to help SMEs go digital. So there's another program that's called SME Go Digital. And I think that whole ecosystem that will benefit, both the digital solution providers and the businesses will both benefit, because everyone's going to move a step up into deploying such solutions. So that's one particular area. And two, I think, beyond that, one interesting point, maybe just an example, is that I just spoke to a UK company providing cybersecurity solutions, and they've actually gained quite a bit of traction, not with the government in Singapore, but with the SMEs in Singapore. So even the SMEs are now more cognizant of the need for cybersecurity solutions to make sure that they are not subject to ransomware. And I was really surprised that one of these seafood, retailer, if that's how you call it, they have actually adopted some of these cybersecurity solutions for their IT infrastructure. So I think there will be a fundamental shift in that, or acceleration of that in the marketplace.
I think that's really interesting. So COVID actually catalyzing more economic activity in the SME ecosystem as well. So not just small business to large business, but small to small suppliers. And Teng Lip, what do you think about potential shifts in mobility and what we might see the trends after, or as we live in a post-COVID world?
Yeah, so I actually echo Wei Chuen's view. So essentially what COVID-19 has done is that it has accelerated the trends of digitalization as well as automation. So smart city is not going to go away. In fact, it's going to come even sooner. So, with automation, what's going to happen? So, which means that, with factories, they're going to think about having fewer workers and automating more of their processes, more of their, and when you have to automate, what it means that you will also need more IoT endpoints, more IoT devices. So it's actually what we do, except that it's going to come much faster. And similarly, with the greater deployment of, let's say, IoT endpoints, what is happening is that it's going to open up the surface area for OT cyber attacks. So it's again something that we do. So we think that having COVID-19 is actually accelerating a lot of the trends that in the past we have been trying to convince people that it's coming, but with COVID-19 it's actually here.
Yes. That's really interesting. So an increase in automation, digitization, as Wei Chuen said, but also a real acceleration of all of these solutions. So coming to market faster and a real need for it. I think that's going to be quite exciting for a lot of the businesses that are listening online. And I wish we had time for